All right, guys, Genesis 1, 2. You guys know the drill. Let's jump right in. Okay, it's 創世記1章2節。創世記1章2節。I'll read the text twice, and then we'll jump into an explanation. 地は形なく、虚しく。闇が淵の表にあり。神の霊が水の表を覆っていた。One more time. 地は形なく、虚しく。闇が淵の表にあり、神の霊が水の表を覆っていた。Alright, here we go. If you watch the first video in the series, you'll know what chiwa is already. And so let's look at katachinaku and munashiku. These have something in common, and so we're going to look at that first, and then we'll come back to this slide. Okay, so Japanese has 3 different kinds of adjectives. Some textbooks will say 2. I think 3 is better. There are i-Adjectives, na-Adjectives, and no-Adjectives. In this lesson, we're going to learn about i-Adjectives. Okay, so as the name suggests, these all end in i. Okay, so we have oishii. Remember, this circle means that this is a flat pitch accent word. Okay, so oishii, oishii means delicious. And it ends in an i. Okay, next we have atsui, atsui. This means hot, like hot outside. Hot to the touch. Okay, we have the accent over here. Atsui, atsui. And once again, this ends in an i, as you can see. Okay, then we have tsurai, also flat pitch, which means hard, unbearable, something like that. Okay, then we have munashi, which is the word from our text today. Munashi. Munashi means empty, void, fruitless, etc. We have the accent over here. And as you can see, these all end in i. Okay, so in today's passage, we're looking at a certain form of the i-Adjective, and it is the ku form. I have conjunctive here in parentheses because in today's passage, it is used in a conjunctive way, meaning it's basically saying the adjective's meaning and something else. It's linking its adjective to the rest of the sentence. Now, I have a very, very important note here. It says hold things lightly at first. What do I mean by that? Well, when you learn the ku form as the conjunctive form, you might think, well, okay, the ku form is the conjunctive form. That's what it's always going to mean. But that's not the only thing that the ku form can represent. So it has other meanings in other contexts. And we're not going to look at all of those because that wouldn't be very useful to do at this point in time. But when you learn something new from one of my classes or anywhere, hold it lightly, whether it's a word or a phrase or a grammar structure, whatever it might be. Hold it lightly and remind yourself that the meaning of it is going to expand as you expose yourself more and more to Japanese. Okay, so how do we form the ku form? It's very, very simple. We just go straight from the i form and we change that i to a ku. That's all you have to do, and it gives it the meaning and. Okay, so for example, oishii becomes oishiku, which is delicious and something, something, something. It's going to be followed by something else. Atsui becomes atsuku, which is hot and something else. Okay, notice that the accent here moves over to the left, so atsui becomes atsuku. So in atsui, tsu has the highest pitch in the word, but in atsuku, a has the highest pitch in the word. Okay, this is very, very common in the ku form. You might have noticed that there is a hiragana tsu here, and you might be thinking, why is it hiragana? The rest is katakana. It is because this tsu is unvoiced, which means that it does not have a vowel sound. Okay, it just has the consonant sound ts, 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 ts. So what you do to make this sound is you make the tsu position with your mouth and you just blow out air. Ts, ts, ts. Okay, and you get atsuku, atsuku. Okay, practice that a bit. Okay, then we have tsuraku from tsurai. Once again, just changing the i to a ku, and the accent stays the same on flat pitch words. And then finally, we have munashiku from munashi. And once again, the accent is moving over one space to the left. So in munashi, it drops after shi, right? Munashi. In munashiku, it drops after na. Munashiku. And this sh here is also unvoiced like the ts here, which is why it's in hiragana. Munashiku, right? It's not munashiku, it's munashiku. Munashiku. Okay, so that's the ku or conjunctive form of the i-Adjective. It's very important to know that this is mostly a literary form. So this isn't the form that you would use in speech if you want to connect an adjective to the rest of the sentence. It is a literary form, so it's going to be good to know when we read through the Kogo Yakuseisho, which is what we're reading through now. But if you want to know more about how to do this in speech, I would recommend looking up the te form of adjectives, or just wait until we get there in the Bible. Okay, so now that we've looked at the ku or conjunctive form of the I adjective, we're going to see how that operates in an actual sentence. Okay, so we have here katachi naku, and later down we have munashiku. Okay, so these are two examples of the conjunctive ku form of I adjectives. Okay, let's start here at katachi naku. Make sure you take a look at the accent. Katachi naku. I translated this as without shape and. Okay, so let's break that down. We have katachi, which means shape. So a circle, a square, a triangle, those are all katachi. And then we have naku. So this is the conjunctive ku form that we just looked at of I adjectives. And this is where we get the and meaning. I do need to mention, though, that technically speaking, this comes from a verb form. So nai is the negative form of the verb aru, which means to exist. So it means to not exist, but it conjugates like an I adjective. Okay, so here we put it in the conjunctive ku form the way we would any I adjective. So altogether, katachi naku means without shape and something, something, something. I mentioned up above that the ku conjunctive form is not common in speech. It's more of a literary form. Nakute is probably how you'd say this in speech. Okay, next we have munashiku. We already looked at this up above. So this is just from munashi, right? Empty, void, fruitless, whatever it might be. And it's in the conjunctive form. So it's fruitless and something, something, something. I did include this here, munashi yume, because I wanted you to see that this can be used metaphorically. So a munashi yume is like a vain dream, something like that. And just as we had up above, you would see this as munashikute more commonly in speech. It would be in the te form. Okay, so let's just go back and look at that all together. So we have chi wa katachi naku munashiku. So you should be able to see now how this is all conjunctive here. So chi wa katachi naku munashiku. The earth is without shape and void and... Okay, so what comes next? Let's take a look. Next we have what's here in the red. So yami ga fuchi no mote ni ari. Yami ga fuchi no mote ni ari. I translated this as darkness was on the surface of the depths and. Okay, so we have yami, which is a final high-pitch accent word. We talked about this in the first video. Basically, to review, it means that you only hear the accent drop when you have a particle after the word. So yami ga, yami o, yami wa, etc. Okay, so this means literal darkness, but it can also mean metaphorical darkness. Okay, so yamiochi means a fall to the dark side. So like Anakin Skywalker is a typical example of someone who did a yamiochi. Okay, this is used in modern Japanese. Okay, then we have ga, which is a particle. You know, I like to use hand signs for particles. I like to use ga, this hand sign, ga. Okay, so ga marks the grammatical subject. Okay, so yami ga fuchi no mote ni ari. Okay, so what's on the surface of the depths? It's yami. Okay, this is the subject. Next we have fuchi no mote ni. Fuchi no mote ni. On the surface of the depths. Okay, so fuchi means depths, the depths, fuchi. And you know by now that this hiragana here means that the first beat of the word is unvoiced. So you're just blowing air out like you're blowing out a candle, basically. Fuchi, 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 fuchi. Okay, that's how that sounds. And this can be used metaphorically as well. So zetsubo no fuchi ni shizundeiru means to be sinking in the depths of despair. Zetsubo means despair. Shizumu is to sink. Shizundeiru, to be sinking. Zetsubo no fuchi ni shizundeiru. I'm sinking in the depths of despair. And this is followed by no, which is a particle that means of. I like to do no for this one. It shows possession. No. No has a lot of other meanings as well, but in this case, it is possessive. Okay, so it is attached to fuchi, which means we're saying that fuchi has something. It's possessing something. What is it possessing in this case? It's the surface. Okay, so the surface belongs to the depths. Fuchi no omote. Fuchi no omote. Okay, I hope that makes sense. Omote means surface in this case. This is also final high pitch. Omote ga, omote ni. And then this is followed by ni, which is the particle that marks location of existence. Okay, so we saw this in the first lesson as marking the point in time that an action or event takes place. In this case, it's marking the location of being, of existence, okay? But we can use the exact same hand sign because it still makes sense, right? Okay, next we have ari, which comes from the verb aru, to be, to exist. I mentioned that up above when we were talking about nai, to not exist. Okay, this means was or is and. The reason I have was or is because the tense of the sentence is determined by the final verb in the sentence. So we haven't gotten to the end of the sentence yet, so we don't know if it's going to be future tense, present tense, or past tense. We just know that this is conjunctive. We're connecting to be, was, is to something else. So in order to fully understand this, we do need to look at the next slide. Okay, so here we're going to look at the conjunctive mas stem of Godan verbs. This will be the last kind of grammar deep dive we do in this lesson. I don't want to overwhelm you. So let's take a look at this. So we have verbs like kau, kaku, aru, etc. These are Godan verbs. We talked about this in the first lesson of the series. To review very quickly, Godan verbs conjugate across all 5 columns. And here we're just looking at one conjugation of Godan verbs. Okay, so we have kau, which means to buy, and that conjugates to kaimasu. That is the long form of the verb kau. So kau, kaimasu, they both mean to buy. Kau, I buy. Kaimasu, I buy. Same thing, but the second is considered more formal. Okay, so as you can see, we're moving from u here to I. We're moving over to the left. U becomes I, and then we just add a mas at the end. Okay, so this is the mas form of the verb kau. Okay, next we have kaku, same idea. Kaku means to write. Kakimasu. We're just moving from ku to ki, adding a mas at the end. Finally, we have the verb in question in today's passage, aru. Same thing, we're just moving to the left, ari, and then adding a mas. Arimasu. Arimasu, to be, is, etc. Okay, so this is how Godan verbs conjugate into their mas form. But what we actually want here is just the mas stem, just the mas stem. Okay, so we just want this part here. So the mas stem is what you get when you form the mas form and then chop off the mas. Okay, so kai, kaki, and ari are the mas stems of these verbs here. And so here also, just like I did with the adjectives, I have the word conjunctive in parentheses because the mas stem has lots of functions. Remember, hold things lightly. So this is not the only function of the mas stem. But in this case, it does indeed have a conjunctive meaning. So let's go back to the passage and we will see here ari. So remember, this is the mas stem. So we make the mas form, chop off the mas. Ari, it means was, is, and. Okay, it has a conjunctive meaning in this case. Hope that makes sense. If it didn't, ask me a question in the comments section and I will respond. All right, we are on the last section here. We'll look at the red characters once again. 神の霊が水の表を覆っていた。神の霊が水の表を覆っていた。Okay, this means God's spirit was covering the surface of the waters. Kamino, you should already get, right? Kamino, of God. And then ga, we already know. So all we have to learn is re here, okay? Kamino re ga. Okay, re means spirit. Kamino re, the spirit of God. And we're saying that that is the subject with the particle ga, which we learned up above. Okay, so kamino re ga. Kamino re ga. Good. So then we have mizu, which is water. Flat pitch, mizu, mizu. Okay, you're going to hear omizu a lot. A lot of people like to say omizu. Women use this more than men. It's just kind of a nice way of saying water. Finally, we have oteita. I did promise at the beginning of this series that we're going to leave no stone unturned. However, we've already done a ton of grammar stuff in this video. I don't want to overwhelm you guys, so I am going to skip this one for now. We are going to come back to this form of the verb, okay? It's the past progressive. You can look it up if you want to. We will hit this in a future video. Don't worry about that. For now, just know that we have oteiru, which is to be covering. Oteiru. And as we learned in the first lesson, we can change the ru here to a ta to give it the past tense meaning. So oteiru, to be covering. Oteita is was covering. And this all comes from the verb ou, which means to cover. So don't worry too much about how we get from one place to another. Just know that oteiru can conjugate to oteita to give it the past tense meaning, was covering. Okay, so kami no rei ga mizu no omote o oteita. God's spirit was covering the surface of the waters. All right, let's read this and we can wrap up. Remember, if you guys want to do private lessons with me one-on-one, just sign up from my page and we can get you a spot. Here we go. 地は形なく虚しく、闇が淵の表にあり、 神の霊が水の表を覆っていた。More time. 地は形なく虚しく、闇が縁の表にあり、神の霊が水の表を覆っていた。Thanks for watching, guys. I'll see you in the next one.